Hi, everyone. As has become my habit, I am going to start by telling you that we are recording this session so that we can use it in our archive, so we can slice it and dice it and push out new information and hopefully get more people excited about this program. So we'll take your questions in the second half of the session. If you'd prefer not to be on screen, totally fine. Just drop those questions in the chat. Otherwise, we'll use the raise hands feature. This is all old hat for our new digital world. You all know how to do this already, I am sure. If we haven't had occasion to meet before, my name is Ann Carter Mulligan. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the Batten School. My friend and colleague Courtney Leisten-Snyder is here. She's our Assistant Director of Admissions. And then we also have one of our newer accelerated candidates, Polly, who you will hear much more from in a little bit. But here's the agenda for tonight. I'm going to start sharing a little bit of information about the program for those of you who have not seen this slide deck before. Apologies to the rest of you. And then we'll get to the more dynamic. We'll field your questions and we'll hear more from Polly. So we will go right into it. Frank Batten was the founder of the Batten School. He made a gift in 2007 after getting really discouraged at the state of play in the policy world in government. He really thought policymakers were not doing a good job actually delivering on their promise to implement good policy. And for him, it really came down to a failure in leadership. So I think in the face of a global pandemic, when there are really deep rifts due to political partisanship and racial injustice in our American fabric, the observation that you see here on this slide is really relevant. And it's also something that we really take pride in. Our dual focus in policy and leadership is pretty unique among public policy schools. So a public policy school traditionally will focus more on kind of narrowly public administration, analysis, evaluation. We will combine that with a number of things meant to help you develop your leadership portfolio. So we want you to really be able to both identify policy solutions, but also implement them. So we'll give you some hard skills in research and data analysis and policy evaluation, but also on the leadership side, you'll study group behavior, you'll study negotiation, conflict resolution, project management, team building, all intended to help you really start to apply the theories that you learn to real situations so you can meet challenges and really create some positive lasting change. So that vision is something that we're really proud of. We really want to empower you and challenge you to become a resilient leader. Our students are very deeply engaged in their communities at Batten, at UVA. After graduation, they are impact driven. The school has a very strong service orientation. So that focus on policy and leadership really helps you kind of blossom and grow. We are a smaller school, so we have about 400 students. There's a very strong emphasis on a cohort model. So you're very close to your classmates, to your faculty, to support staff. Everyone is very accessible. There's a great deal of individualized support through the application process, through academic advising, all the way through preparing for internships and your future careers. We think it's really important to kind of cultivate that Batten network so you can continue to use it to achieve your professional goals after you graduate, but also we hope you will use it to give back to the next generation of policy leaders. Interdisciplinary, so we're going to look at the ways that social psychology, econ, history, politics, ethics, all intersect and shape policy. Our faculty are both scholars and practitioners in the domestic and global spheres, so they are well versed in thinking about and doing real policy work. So Dean Solomon was in the Obama administration. We have a former member of Congress on staff who I know Polly loves, and I hope you will mention Professor Carson. He was also a high-ranking US Army and DoD official. We have folks who worked at the UN, at the World Bank. All of them really bring that experience from their careers to bear in the classroom. And as a result, that classroom is very interactive. It's very hands-on, very collaborative. The accelerated degree is a professional degree, so it's very pragmatic. The intent is to really equip you for the real world. So when you leave Batten, it's our hope that you have a really strong foundation in analytical and critical thinking. You know how to write, design, and execute a policy project. You are a proficient public speaker. All of those skills are really great springboard for a number of careers. So here is a little bit more kind of technical information about the degree. You probably know by now it is for students who are receiving their undergraduate degree outside of Batten. So you major in something else. You tend to, if you're on the kind of the traditional timeline, begin taking a mix of Batten courses in your 4th year, though we have some exceptions to that. While finishing out your undergrad work, you graduate, walk the lawn. Summer internship is part of the program. We help you find a good fit for your summer internship. And then the final year is all graduate work. Students, as I mentioned, typically apply 3rd year, but I will show you on the next slide that there is a path for those of you who have brought enough credits into UVA that you can do it kind of on an expedited timeline. You have to finish your prerequisites by the beginning of the program. So those only have to be completed by the fall that you start at Batten. They can be taken during the spring of application. They can be taken in the summertime. If that math prerequisite, that calculus-based math, is something that you intend to use your AP credit to fulfill, not a bad idea to take a little additional collegiate level math. If you haven't yet and you're already looking at application, don't stress. But if you've got a little bit more time before application, it's not a bad idea to show us that, to demonstrate some proficiency in collegiate level math, and also to really build skills so that you'll be successful in the program. As I alluded to, that program is quantitative. Those math skills really come in handy. So the focus is on applied knowledge. The culminating project for the accelerated degree is an applied policy project where you work as a consultant for a client. As I think I mentioned, it's a professional degree. It's a deep dive into policy and data analysis. It's really for students who want to directly influence the policy sphere. I just moved all of your faces, so now I can't advance my slides. Hey, there we go. Okay, so early accelerated applicants. If you have enough credits to apply in your 2nd year, if you're gonna reach 90 by 3rd year fall, I wanted to include this information so you had a realistic expectation about what to expect. You will not have the same 4th year experience as your peers. I'm just gonna get it out there now. You are locking in a narrower focus earlier in your academic career that does not really accommodate changing or shifting or exploring other interests. The benefit, of course, is that you will be able to do more in the policy world. You can apply for higher level jobs. Your earning potential is going to be a little bit higher. You can take on analyst jobs, but it is a trade-off. So definitely spend some time thinking, doing some deep introspection, clarifying your goals and your intent in pursuing this on an early track. It's a very innovative and challenging curriculum, particularly on the leadership side. There is a lot of self-work. There's a lot of kind of navigating group dynamics. It's definitely kind of cutting edge, best in class teaching, but it can often be really uncomfortable. It's very, very different from college courses, College of Arts and Sciences courses. You really have to be comfortable sitting with conflict and nuance, comfortable with discomfort to some extent. And you're also in a classroom environment with postgrads who might have 5 or 10 years of professional experience on you. So it's very different. If law or business or med school or some further graduate degree is your ultimate goal, this might not be the best path for you. It still might be. I would definitely recommend you schedule an appointment with me if you haven't already, and we can kind of talk through your goals and your process. On the application side, there's a little bit less for us to evaluate. So you really have to help us fill in the gaps that we don't necessarily have the benefit of seeing in your transcript. That makes the essays, the recommendations a little bit more important, very important for you to clarify for us why Batten, why policy, what motivates you, what you want to do with the degree, to start to fill in the gaps in information that we might see otherwise. Okay, so here is the curriculum, 49 credits. So there is room in your first year in the program to finish up your undergrad requirements. There's essentially space for 6 credits in the fall, 6 credits in the spring. Before you begin the program, there is this Chibo that you see here, complete immersion in Batten. That's just a very funky way for us to make it fit with the Italian word for eat, or eating, or meals, or something, because we're very food oriented at Batten. So that is your mandatory orientation. It's the 2 weeks preceding the start of the fall semester. You'll build up your quantitative proficiency. We'll figure out kind of what support and what level of quantitative coursework you're ready for that we can plug you into the curriculum. And then there's also some kind of cohort, good fun cohort building stuff. So then in that first year, you'll do really rigorous coursework in foundations of policy evaluation and analysis, so that in the grad year, you can start to apply the tools that you built in that first year towards more experiential coursework and towards policy areas that are interesting to you. So as a result, that first year is pretty tough. You've got a foot in 2 worlds. You're finishing your undergrad degree. There might be a capstone or a thesis associated with that. And you're also taking a pretty heavily quantitative graduate level course load. It's the tougher of the 2 years, I have heard. Maybe in some part because you're not like deeply engaging in the really fun stuff of the second year. You're doing a lot of building up so that you can then do a lot of application later. Okay, I like to give just a heads up on tuition and financial aid really briefly, so you can start to plan for it now. The financial benefit of pursuing the degree is obviously you're getting an MPP in 1 additional year instead of 2. Your first year in the program, you're going to continue to pay your undergrad tuition rate to your home school, wherever that is. It's probably the college. Financial aid is administered centrally through Student Financial Services. In that second year, you move to graduate tuition. It's a higher rate. There also is no central resource at UVA for financial aid. It's all school and department based. So Batten does have some funding sources to help students kind of lower that cost of attendance. Need and merit-based fellowships, which you can apply for. Teaching assistantships are the best gig. They give you in-state tuition plus a stipend. There's federal work study, there's other employment. All of that can only be applied in the second year though, when you are a full-time graduate student. So you are assuming a little bit of risk when you enter that first year that there's no secured funding for you in the second year. I think it's also safe to assume, just from a planning perspective, you should not anticipate that financial aid will cover the full cost of tuition. We will do everything we can, but it's a kind of a finite resource. All right, so here are a little bit about professional outcomes for the Master of Public Policy. This is a slide that shows data from the combined postgrad and accelerated cohort. The class of 2018 here, class of 2019 is very similar, 98% employed within 6 months graduation. You'll see that many of our grads go into consulting, more so on the government consulting side. Which really matches the skills that you're building in critical thinking and analysis and project management. But our grads also enter direct government service. They enter the business world. They work for nonprofits and research institutions and think tanks. Many join service organizations like Peace Corps, Teach for America. Some take on academic fellowships. The top destination is certainly Capitol Hill, but grads also work on Wall Street, they work in the tech sector, they work abroad in global policy. So there's just a really big cross-section of industry and government and public service represented. All right, so our programs are competitive. There are typically 90 seats in the MPP. Half of them are accelerated candidates, half are traditional 2-year postgrads. Last year, we received 64 applications for 45 seats. So the accelerated program does have a slightly higher admittance rate than the BA, well, than pretty much any of our other programs. I think because a lot of self-selection occurs. By the time you are contemplating going down this path, you're pretty well prepared. You very much know what you want to get out of it. You tend to be a pretty strong applicant. You have heard this from me before. There is no typical Batten student. There's no set criteria that we're looking for. There's a range of GPAs. It swings pretty wildly. I think it is last year's class. I think it was maybe from a 2.8 or a 2.9 all the way up to a 4.0. No typical path in terms of extracurriculars or coursework that you have taken. We really want to see your passion, your engagement in whatever it is that you're passionate about, your interest in policy, and your academic growth. So we look across all of the elements of the application to measure those things. A little bit about that application, we will ask for a resume or a CV, 3 essays, 2 letters of recommendation, your unofficial transcripts, and then there's an optional application addendum that we're really encouraging students to use this year to give us the kind of pandemic context. So if you are experiencing challenges that have had a ripple effect on your life as a student, we absolutely do not want to penalize you for that. Just explain your decision making, explain your challenges, fill in the gaps in the optional addendum. We also waived all application fees this year because we know many students and families are experiencing hardship. All right, so applications are now open. You can go to our website for some sample walkthroughs. We'll offer a workshop on October 30th, hosted by some of our Batten ambassadors and some student orgs, where we'll give you additional tips about how to be successful. The opportunity there is you'll actually be able to sit down individually in 15-minute blocks with a current student to receive feedback on your essays. They can read them, they can troubleshoot your resume, they can answer any questions you might have. They will also offer dedicated office hours over the next 2 months. And then over winter break are also available over email to give you feedback. So we want to make sure you are well supported through this, what can be a stressful application season. We know this. We are also hosting this year a Batten Frankathon. It is modeled on a hackathon, a case simulation competition. It's because we can't do the chili cook-off in person. So this is our attempt to kind of fill in that space to give you a little taste of the Batten community. So we'll give you a policy prompt. You can work with a team, and we'll have access to a current student to serve as a Batten mentor to solve some policy-related problem. There'll be a presentation day. We'll declare winners. We'll have some guest judges. We'll have some swag. It won't quite hit the mark of being together all together in Garrett Hall, but I think it's the best we can do under these circumstances. And that was a lot of info. So do know that we are here to help. Courtney and I have daily office hours over Zoom. You can email us. I can connect you with an ambassador for more conversation, for their perspectives. If you go to the website, you can learn more. And we also push out all of our events through our listserv. We debuted this week a new blog that through this season will be application facing. There's a lot of tips there that you can check out, and we'll also feature ambassador profiles. We're thinking about kind of how to get a sense of what the community is like if you can't actually be there in person. So hopefully we'll have a lot of dynamic content that we'll feature there. So for a little bit more on that Batten experience, I am now going to stop the share so that Courtney can kick off the conversation with our wonderful student, Polly. There we go.
Great. Thank you, Anne. As she mentioned, this is now the fun part of the evening, so please feel free to ask any and all questions of both Anne and myself if you have some more technical, logistical questions. But also, Polly is a great resource. She's one of our new MPP students who's also doing that accelerated early applicant timeline. So if you have questions about that, she is truly the expert on that right now. But I want to turn it to her to introduce herself. So obviously we have one panelist. So tell me who you are, Polly, where you're from, your involvement on grounds, your policy areas of interest, and if you know this already, a possible path after graduation for you.
Hi everyone, my name's Polly Kime. I'm doing the Excel MPP. I'm also finishing up an interdisciplinary major right now called Political Economy, and that combines public policy, economics, and politics. So if you have any questions about UVA's interdisciplinary major, I can answer some of those as well. Last summer, I interned for UVA's National Security Policy Center, and I conducted research on the US Space Force and worked for their social media team. I'm also the president of the International Relations Organization, and I compete regularly with UVA's Model UN team. And I'm also the director of career and personal development for my sorority Chi Omega. And my policy area of interest is national security. And in the future, I would like to pursue a career in government intelligence or federal consulting.
No wishy-washiness there. I got a definitive sense of where she knows she wants to go. Yeah.
Definitely on top of it. Well, I open the floor to questions that you all may have, but to kick it off, I'll ask you, Polly, why Batten, and why did you choose maybe the Accelerated MPP over the BA?
So before I joined Batten, I took some of the undergrad classes, and probably the best one that I ever took was with Professor Brad Carson. So I took his Hacking for Defense class, and so through that program, we were assigned a case from the Department of Defense. So I specifically was working for the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, and our problem was looking at how climate-driven migration impacts the delivery of primary education materials. So this, and at the end we got to present at the Pentagon. So I just found that Batten classes were very tangible, and there were actually things that I could put on my resume about what I could do. And also the professors in Batten, not only are they they have so much expertise, they are also very willing to talk to you during office hours and like genuinely want to get to know you. The reason why I chose the MPP as opposed to the BA was because the MPP provides a really strong quantitative base for things. So I'm currently in an economics course, I'm in a research methods class, I'm learning Stata, and these are things that when I've been applying to jobs that employers are looking for. So not only can I analyze policy, but I have a lot of quantitative skills to back it up. So that's why I think that the MPP was a better path for me.
Excellent. So I know you are only a few months in to the MPP program. What has been your biggest challenge that you've faced at Batten so far? Is it balancing doing it early? Is it the classes? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think that probably the biggest challenge right now is getting to know my cohort, just because of the nature of Zoom classes. Luckily, I do have some classes in person, but I've been trying to go out of my way to like message my classmates on Zoom. And then also the Batten Grad Council has a lot of great opportunities for us to get to know each other. So currently I think there's a grit tab going on. So I'm probably gonna go there with some of my classmates. But everyone in our cohort like really wants to like get to know each other, and I'm sure that like once COVID-19 is over, hopefully we can hang out on the range or do stuff like that.
Great. I can keep asking questions, but does anyone in the audience have questions for Polly or for Anna or myself? Feel free to put in the chat. Oh, perfect. We'll do the one in the chat and then I'll get to you, Rachel. Could you explain more about your interdisciplinary major, Polly?
Oh yeah, so if you're thinking about doing Excel, that's a really great way of going about it. So I didn't find that there was any major that like specifically allowed me to study policy, politics, and econ. I think probably the closest one would be the Batten BA, but you can't do the BA and the MPP. So I had to do a proposal for that. You have to get, it's kind of a difficult process because you have to get a professor advisor from each area. So I have an advisor, Professor Carson's one of my advisors. I have an econ advisor. I also have a politics advisor. And yeah, this way you can actually choose like which courses you want to take. And I think that like I actually, when I applied to Batten, I wanted to be an econ major, but then I switched over to the interdisciplinary major because I think that like if you want to do Excel, you kind of have to be very deliberate about what undergrad classes you take. Something that I kind of did was I took a lot of undergrad Batten classes, and now I'm getting kind of close to the limit of the number of classes you can take outside of the college. But did that answer your question about the interdisciplinary major? Oh, also one thing I wanted to add was just the difference between working with people in the College of Arts and Sciences versus working with everyone in Batten. I found that the staff at Batten is so helpful. So Steve Hiss, the career advisor, he's been so helpful for the internship process with looking over cover letters, finding opportunities. And then also Christine Nelson, she registered me in a class like just last week. And also Amanda Crombie has been so helpful with making sure that I graduate on time. So just like the entire staff at Batten is really supportive, I would say. And other majors that I can, not to trash on any of them, but at other majors that I considered, I didn't find as much support.
Great. Rachel, your hand is raised. You're welcome to ask your question.
Yeah, so my question is more for Anne or yourself, probably Anne. So working through the application, I noticed that there's not a section to write in minors. Obviously, those will be shown in our transcript, but I feel like my minor is really applicable to the MPP. I'm doing statistical analysis of social behavior. So it's a lot of that quantitative application, but towards and the idea being to apply it more to social analysis and problem solving. So is that something that I should add in my addendum or talk about my addendum, or is there a better place for me to talk about why I'm doing the minor and also how it applies to the MPP?
Yeah, that's a great question because yes, we will definitely see it on your transcript, but because of the relevance to your path and the way that you're utilizing it to kind of leverage a set of skills towards the MPP, I would absolutely draw attention to it in the addendum too. That can be a space really for anything you feel like we didn't adequately ask you. So that can be framing things in a very positive light, as is the case here. It can be putting negative things in context. It can just be amplifying anything you want to spend a little bit more time explaining. So that would be perfect fodder for that section.
All right, any other audience questions? Otherwise, I'll keep going. Perfect. Did you originally, Polly, want to apply to the Batten BA, or did you always know that you wanted to do the MPP?
I kind of came into UVA knowing that I wanted to do the MPP, and that made it a little easier for planning's sake. So for example, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to study abroad my third or fourth year. So I studied abroad in the summer of 2019, and there were some classes there that transferred over. I always thought that the MPP would be a better fit for me. But I have a friend who originally started doing the BA, and then my friend Dan, he found that the MPP just would be a better fit for him because it was more quantitative based, and he ended up switching. So that's possible too. But I'd say I'm kind of biased, but I'm more pro MPP.
You can even apply to, you would be crazy to do it and very ambitious, but you can even apply to all of our programs in a single admission cycle if you are in the situation where Polly was, where you could be eligible for either the accelerated program or the BA. We'd be glad to kind of give you an admissions decision, and then you could choose from there what path is better for you. More frequently is the case of her friend Dan that she alluded to, where they'll start in the BA and then decide for any variety of factors. You're ready for grad school, you know you want to work in analysis, you know you want to hit the ground running in the policy world. I'd say we have anywhere from 3 to 5 students who do that in any given cycle. So it's a smaller group of people, but it is a kind of a good way to get a taste of the the curriculum and the expertise to give you some more information to know whether Batten BA or Batten Excel. The drawback to doing that, of course, just in full disclosure, is you have shifted to paying a higher tuition rate in the Batten BA than you pay in the college. So way that it's still you're gonna graduate with one fewer year of education to pay for ultimately, but you are doing a kind of higher tuition rate for that gap year. So I guess actually I've now kind of talked myself out of going that route. Maybe a better idea to kind of clarify what you want, gather as much intelligence as you can from folks like Polly, our Batten ambassadors, to kind of tease out going in which program might be better for you.
All right, Polly, along those lines where you knew coming in you wanted to do the accelerated MPP, did you know you wanted to do it on the expedited timeline? And has it been a difficult balance for you to navigate that path? Because I know you mentioned no study abroad. What else has been maybe difficult with that?
Yeah, so when I came in, when I was talking to the Batten missions officers for my first year, I knew that I had a lot of credits coming in, and so I definitely wanted to do the MPP kind of the extra accelerated path right off the bat, and it has been a little difficult. There's a reason why I'm not an econ major anymore, but I still I found that the people in my classes are like super supportive, so people are always willing to study with me, or we're allowed to collaborate on our problem sets for like econ and RMDA. And then also it's been really nice to get to know people from different walks of life. So like there's some guy in my class who went to GW and then worked as a lobbyist for 5 years. And he's back at Batten. So just being able to make friends with people who like have so many life experiences and can tell me about them, I think that that's a really awesome opportunity if you decide to do the MPP.
All right, is it Jewel or Julie?
Jewel, yes.
Jewel.
This is a question for Polly. What do you think are the advantages or possibly disadvantages of like the mixed cohort between accelerated MPP students and regular MPP students?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I would say is that sometimes I'm not able to distinguish whether or not someone is an Excel student or whether or not they're a post-grad student. Not that that's really a disadvantage, but like when we work together in a group, so for example, like in my psychology leadership class, we were doing this project and it was, we were the government intelligence group. And so some of the people in my group, like me and another kid, we didn't have as much like workforce experience that we could talk about. But then when we learned from them, like one of them is in ROTC, is a lieutenant, and then another guy worked as an EMT. So I think it's kind of like a nice mix. So you're able to just like meet other people who have actually done things, and then they have connections that you can hopefully like use in the future when you're finding jobs, or like just ask their advice, because for me, I obviously haven't had a ton of workforce experience, so being able to pull from their knowledge is also super useful.
All right. I know you mentioned psych for leadership, Polly. The leadership courses I think are probably the more mystifying courses at Batten to wrap your head around. Why don't you share a little bit about what you're learning in psych for leadership right now, and what value you think the leadership curriculum adds to the more quantitative elements of the MPP?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite classes right now. So Professor Bowler is awesome. He has like so much experience with consulting, kind of a consulting expert. Like if you want to go into consulting, he's the guy to talk to. So we've done some practice cases. We're learning about like why leaders make the decisions that they do. And then tomorrow, I believe we're doing a simulation from the in class tomorrow. So that's one of the classes that's been really fun. And yeah, it's very different from my other quantitative classes, but yeah, definitely one of the cooler ones.
All right. Any other questions from the audience? I have one final one for Polly, unless there's a burning question there. All right, well, I'll ask it. If other questions come up, feel free and ask them. So, Polly, this time last year, you were thinking about applying to Batten. What advice would you give to someone who is either in your shoes or will be in your shoes a few years ago as they contemplate applying to Batten?
Okay, so when I was in your guys' shoes last year, I remember thinking everything rides on this because I'd kind of built my entire college plan off of getting into Batten. And I just kept wondering, like, am I doing enough? Like, what else can I do? And I would just say, like, be your authentic self. In terms of GPA, I'll be honest, I didn't have the highest GPA applying, but the fact that it's a holistic experience is so awesome. And then in terms of recommendations, I would definitely recommend getting someone who can really speak to your experiences. So though, like maybe one professor and then someone, if you like worked with them over the summer or stuff like that. So I had 2 recommenders who were able to like really talk about who I am. And then also in my essays, I was able to talk about some of my leadership experience on grounds, and hopefully that shined through when you're reading the essays. But yeah, I wouldn't yeah, obviously like put your best foot forward, but either way it'll be a good experience. So
That is a great tease to really help push people towards that application workshop because we'll give you a bunch of tips. I'll kind of share an overview of the very specific things that we're looking for before you hit the ground running with your own kind of advisor through the process in the person of a Batten ambassador. So they can give you lots of tips like Polly just did, and also kind of share their experience and what they found worked for them. It's a really valuable resource.
oh, also come to Batten events. Like Batten Hour is awesome. I went to a ton of those before I applied to Batten. So you get to like meet different professors, or they're always super cool speakers. So
Yeah, and those are continuing in a virtual environment. So those take place every Monday, and they are, I don't think you all necessarily receive the kind of compendium of Batten events each week as prospective students. So the best way to see what's coming up next, what's on tap, is to go to our events page on our website. Any last thoughts? Oh, Courtney is dropping knowledge in the chat tonight. I love it. Full paragraphs from you, Courtney. It's great. If nobody has anything else, feel free to reach out if any other questions come up. Courtney and I are here for you. Polly, I know I've forwarded students your way, and I know you've talked to individual students about questions that they have. So we're all available and eager to kind of help you through this process. We'll cut a little bit early, and I will leave you with, and I'm going to implore you to vote if you have not already, and otherwise we'll see you through the application process. Thanks, y'all. Good night.